All Cooper CPAs, located in the heart of East Nashville, offer a wide variety of tax services for individuals and businesses. Contact them at 615-257-0646 and visit their website, allcooper.com, for a full list of services.
Talkapolis, the social media TV network for your city.
And welcome back, everybody, to Political Soup. Joe Williams, Crom Carmichael. Crom, we like to have a lot of fun on this show.
We do.
We like to poke fun at things and be as jovial as we can about issues where we all disagree. Unfortunately, one issue that I think we all agree on to some extent, but more than anything else, none of us are going to joke about, and that's the horrible, horrible events in Boston last week, where two terrorists laid bombs in the middle of the Boston Marathon, and the intense manhunt to find them.
Oh, I mean, it was, it was just wall-to-wall coverage. And then when they, we've had now, well, even before 9/11, but 9/11 was, I think, the first terrorist attack in the United States. The other terrorist attack were at our embassies and whatnot around the world.
Well, you've got the bombing 2 or 3 years before. I mean, but they were all small things, nothing that really, quote, succeeded or caused the loss of life.
Well, no. I'm not talking about in the U.S. I'm talking about the ones overseas.
Yes.
We had some of our embassies were blown up. We had, we're talking about serious explosions.
Right.
Lots of people killed, a lot of people injured. But 9/11 was the first time that it hit the U.S. There was an attempt in '93 to tip over one of the World Trade Center towers to the other.
Bombing I'm talking about.
Yes, you're right. And that people got a lot of smoke and everything like that, but it was unsuccessful, but it was an attempt, and it kind of lulled us back to sleep.
Yep.
Then in 2001, 9/11 happened, but then since then there have been a whole series of efforts to create more terrorism in the U.S. You had the shoe bomber,
the underwear bomber, and that was the flight coming into Detroit. Then you had the Times Square bomber. Right.
I think there was one other one in a restaurant in Washington, D.C., where there was a Saudi diplomat or something, where they were trying to blow him up and everybody in the restaurant. And all of these failed for one reason or another, and most of it because the devices failed, not because our intelligence was that great. Now, having said that, we've had probably hundreds and maybe even thousands of times where we have thwarted a terrorist because of our intelligence. So this is the purpose of what we're talking about now, is not so much to say that our intelligence agencies aren't working. They're working and doing a good job. But in this particular case, you have to wonder, how in the world does somebody who is, and I'm going to try to get to what I think is the answer, you have somebody who goes to Russia and then goes to that dangerous area of Russia. I can't remember exactly what.
Daghestani, I think.
I can't pronounce.
I can't pull it out right now. Yeah, but it's a part of Chechnya.
Yeah, and where there's a lot of terrorism and a lot of jihadists and a lot of people who kind of turn people into terrorists. Mm-hmm. And the Russians apparently told us about this guy and said, be warned, he is a dangerous character. And then we dropped the ball on that. And that's the part that really merits investigating. Because what really galls me about all of these terrorist attacks and the response to them is that especially this administration, but even previous to that, the Bush administration was very reluctant to call them Islamic jihadists, which is what they are. Now, does that mean that every Muslim is a jihadist? No. But does it mean that most of these terrorist attacks are coming from jihadist Muslims? And the answer is yes. And so we need to have a greater discussion of that. And quite frankly, just as the stop and frisk policies of the New York Police Department have done a wonderful job of reducing the amount of mayhem and murder and violent crime and gun crime in New York, because if you look suspicious, and it doesn't matter what color you are, if you look suspicious, they're going to stop, ask you what you're doing, and they're going to frisk you. And if they find a gun, boom, you go to prison. That's it. Yeah. And so stop and frisk has worked, and they are profiling people who look suspicious. and quite frankly, the Islamic community tends to be the place that is the source of these jihadists. And so extra attention needs to be paid to that community, and we need to ask the people in that community who abhor jihadism to expose the jihadists or the suspected jihadists. And so that was lots going to come from this on how better to protect ourselves going forward.
Crom, a friend of mine posted not long ago, we were talking and he said, you know, we have this theory of coexistence, but coexistence only works if both sides don't want to kill the other. If one side wants to kill the other, you cannot coexist with that.
Correct.
Because all that's going to happen is you're going to die.
Right.
Have we become, I think I know the answer to this, but have we become so politically correct? Because you're advocating the stop and frisk, you're advocating, in some cases it sounds like profiling, et cetera. All these things that we've been told are bad. Have we become so politically correct that we have weakened our defenses to the point that this could be just the start?
Well, these people succeeded because their devices worked. The other people failed because their devices didn't work. And so in the future, there's going to be more people who succeed because their devices work if they build good devices. And we're going to have more of this. And we want to have a free society. But for example, when we go to the airport, we get searched, we can be frisked, we agree to all kinds of things to be able to get on an airplane.
Right.
When we go to a football stadium, my wife has to open her purse, they have to look at her purse. If I'm carrying something, that gets frisked, that gets looked at. Why not for the Boston Marathon or any public event like this, that if you're inside of a certain radius or diameter, whatever the right term is, if you're inside that, perimeter, very good. If you're inside the perimeter and you're carrying something, the police have the right to look inside it and make sure that they know what's in there. That's a very legitimate thing, and the public, I think, would agree to that, because I agree to it when I go to a football game, because I want everybody else who's going into that stadium to also be checked.
But a public event like this that stretches across public areas, that's almost an impossibility, because the amount of, and I'll use Boston for the example, because that would then entail searching every hotel room occupant, every piece of it becomes a massive.
We're talking about a couple of different things. I'm not saying when you go into a stadium, everybody is funneled through a spot.
Yeah,
and so it's easy to check everybody.
Yes.
I'm not saying that you necessarily can check everybody. Just like in New York City, they don't stop and frisk everybody. Okay, what you do is you say, for this public event, there's going to be a perimeter. If you are carrying something and you're inside that perimeter, you can be stopped and you can be asked to show what's in there, and just as you would be if you're trying to enter a stadium, because you're inside the perimeter for the event.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying, is that we should be able in these public events to have a stop and frisk policy for anybody who's inside a perimeter. And you're not going, once again, you're not going to catch everybody, but there were so many, these two guys, they walked past so many policemen carrying their backpacks.
And nobody thought anything about it.
And nobody thought anything about it. And probably police thought if they stopped and asked them, it'd be a warrantless search.
Both of these students, people, criminals, were U.S. citizen by going through the immigration process.
Right.
Now that one is dead, the other, the younger brother, the 19-year-old in the hospital, do you believe he is a criminal or an enemy combatant?
Well, you can be both. And here's what's key here. The administration apparently, from what I understand, could be wrong, but I think they've read him his Miranda rights and said, you're going to be prosecuted as a criminal, and you're going to be read your Miranda rights now. I've heard people say, designate him as an enemy combatant, question him as an enemy combatant, then read him his Miranda rights, and then put him through the through the courts as an American citizen. Now, the left says, oh no, you can't even declare him an enemy combatant because he's an American citizen. I disagree with that. I've heard other people say that's just not the case. Now, Senator Feinstein was on Fox News, and her reaction to Congressman King's saying you can absolutely designate him as an enemy combatant, question him as an enemy combatant, and then read him his Miranda rights and treat him as a common criminal. You can do that. And Dianne Feinstein's reaction was, well, I don't think that saying that is helpful. Well, give me a break. I don't think saying that is helpful. That's what she says about, don't attack me on assault weapons. Don't even talk about it. That's not helpful. Well, you know what? That's just trying to shut down the person who has a disagreement with you. And so what you have in this situation, and then you have Napolitano, who has testified before Congress. I don't know if it's the House or the Senate, where she's now having to walk back a lot of her own testimony, where she said, I didn't know this, or I didn't know that, or my department didn't know this, or didn't know that, the Russians didn't, and now they're saying, oh, yeah, yes, they did, we did know.
Well,
why do they do that?
Well, but you've got the same situation with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and the Benghazi issue, who said and testified under oath. Last I heard, if you do this, it's called perjury, but apparently that doesn't matter anymore.
Oh, is. I know what you mean, is.
Your definition of is.
Yeah.
You're going to kill you later. But she testified under oath, knew nothing about the request for this extra security in Benghazi, never saw any cables, anything like this. And now the investigation turns up a signed document with her name on it that says, no, you can't have any more defense preparations in Benghazi.
Yeah. So we'll see. That's not, this story has more. There's more to it.
Oh, it's got legs.
So there'll be more information that comes out, and if in fact it becomes absolutely clear that Hillary Clinton knew that they had requested additional security, and she personally said, no, you're not getting the additional security, I'd say that her political career is in jeopardy. And the testimony for her false testimony will go right next to her on-air claims that she had to duck bullets when she was in Afghanistan. And they actually had the video clips of that, which she had to then walk that back too. And, the other one was she said she's named after the mountain climber, Hillary.
It
turned
Sir
out,
Hillary, yes.
Yeah, it turned out that he climbed the mountain after she was born. So that story didn't work either. So, but there's more to both. There's more to both of these stories that's going to come, and I think that our security for public events will be heightened, and it is my hope that just as if we go into a studio, we agree to have our bodies or what we're carrying searched. I think the same thing will end up happening here.
Sounds like those three examples you gave on the former Secretary of State sounds like one of those opportunities where it is best to keep a fire extinguisher around when you pull on your trousers. Coming up next, you're going to take a flight, pack a lunch. We'll be back on Political Soup.